And just so you know, my partner's probably going to come back about halfway through this. My dog's going to go crazy. So if you hear that, don't worry. That's all that's happening, okay? So yeah, I'm just going to share the screen and jump straight into it. If you have any questions along the way, probably just like shout out, Dave, or put your hand up or something, because the chat is there. I'm doing see the screens and see the chat all at once. So if you do have a question, just shout out, or if it's in the chat, I can answer them at the end of the call as well, if that's cool with everyone. All right. So what I'm going to do is just jump straight into Ableton here. I've got it loaded up and ready. And I'm going to give you guys an overview of everything we can see in here. It looks a little bit like a spreadsheet in this part here, but it's a lot more fun than your average Google Sheets. So I'm quite excited to show you all that. But first, I thought it would be really cool just to give you a little bit of background on Ableton, not the full-blown history lesson, but worth a little bit of that. So I've just a couple of slides ready for Ableton today, and I'm just going to click on them like this as my computer freezes. But the idea is to give you a little bit of background so you know why it's become like an important, famous bit of software. So to find out, we have to rewind all the way back to the early 2000s, 2002. That's when Ableton was first invented in Berlin in Germany. So Berlin's been a home of electronic music. You could say from the very late 80s through the 90s and onwards, a hub of art and creativity. Anyone recognize this, this famous club here? Berghain, famous techno club in Berlin. And it all started with some computer science students, Robert Henke and Gerald Bellis, Jan Ball as well. Now, these three, they were making music, they were kind of recording into computers, they were computer science students, and they're like, we want to use laptops, because laptops were just coming through on stage, which was totally unheard of at the time. But they're like, we want to do that, and we want to like use it to spin loops of music we can play electronic music along to using other machines. So by 2002, they had Ableton all totally launched, and this is what it originally looked like here. Just, I'm going to hide my Zoom bar as well, which I think will help me. So you can see it looks very similar and not changed much. And one reason it has this almost austere look is because it does not have loads of fancy graphics everywhere. It actually makes it quite light on processing power, so it can run reliably on stage and in the studio. So that's what's cool about Ableton. Stuff you make in Ableton at home, you'll be able to eventually, if you want to, take on stage and use it as a performance tool. Or I know some of you are more into the art, so if you ever have an art installation, maybe it could be a sort of interactive art installation almost as well, which is cool. And just an example of that is this artist Kink from Bulgaria. He's one of the most famous like live electronic artists, and you can see he's got Ableton running alongside some other equipment there, and these grid pad controllers connect to Ableton and can trigger samples and all that. So a little bit of history on Ableton there. I think it's fun to start with a little bit of the story behind it. Any questions on that before we move on, everyone?
Nope.
No, all good. Cool.
No.
Cool. So I'll jump back into Ableton Live here just now. So when you load it up, you're presented with this view first, which is called the session view. Okay, and if you want to get to this view, you can click on this little dot right here. And just, I'm going to show you another thing, the opposite side of the screen. See this arrow on the bottom left? If I click that, boom, this is your info view. This is your total cheat sheet here, the info view. This is where if you hover over anything, it'll tell you what it is. So if I hover over that, it tells me, oh, this is how I select the session view. Okay, and session view is often where people start with loads of loops, and we'll get onto that in a minute. There's another view called arrangement view, this one here. Kristen, you said you're using GarageBand before. This might be a little bit more familiar. It's like a timeline along the top, like down the bottom, it's counted in seconds. Along the top, it's counted in bars and beats like that. So you've got two views in Ableton, and Ableton was the first ever company to ever use this session view. Now, on your left-hand side, this is called like your library view. And in here, you can hide it away with that button or bring it back. And this is where you've got everything you need to start making music. You've got drums, different instruments, you've got effects, you've got plugins, and plugins are essentially third-party instruments and effects you can put into Ableton, which is cool. And then you've also got like packs, like for example, in here, you got the Ableton core library. It comes with loads of samples and sounds and loops that you can use to build up your project. So this library view here, if you hold down Control-Alt-L, Control-Alt-B, that'll kind of open and close the library, also known as the browser. So Control-Alt-B, browser window goes on, off like that. If you're on a Mac, it's probably Command-Alt-B like that. Just in case you're wondering, there is a free 90-day trial, free trial of Ableton from their own website at the moment. So you get 3 months free, basically. So if you want to practice or try any of the things that I'm showing you tonight afterwards, this is the place to get it, okay? Now back to Ableton. That's a little bit about the browser window we're going to come to. And then next, sorry, what's that, guys?
Sorry, no, it doesn't matter.
Okay, no worries. Any questions, just let me know. If I'm going a bit too fast or a bit too slow, just let me know as well, okay? But yeah, that's your browser there, and I'll go into more detail on that later. Now, a cool thing about Ableton is you've got all these columns like this in this section here, and you can have loads of these columns. We've just got column 1 and 2 at the moment. We can kind of forget about these ones at the moment, so I'm going to hide them using this button here, okay? So these columns are called tracks. And if you imagine each track represents, you could imagine like an instrument. So this one might be drums, this one could be bass, and you can add more, like one could be guitar, one could be synthesizer and stuff like that. So you get audio tracks and you get MIDI tracks. And the difference is audio contains actual clips of recorded sound. And MIDI is more like for data and instruments. And we'll come to that in a second. But first, I'll demonstrate how you can get some clips of audio going on. So in track 1, I'm going to drop in a nice little drum sample. So I can go to our user library and then go to packs. Yeah, packs is what I want, because that's where you'll find your core library. And in here, I know I've got a bunch of samples and some loops in here as well. Okay. And in here, I know I've got a whole bunch of all different loops. So I thought I could maybe get some cool like break beats on. So if you click on them, it'll preview it for you. Just checking, are you guys getting the computer audio okay? Thumbs up if you are. Hear that okay yet?
Yes.
Cool, thanks. Nice one. So yeah, and you can click on them, and just as long as this little headphones thing's to blue, that means, and you can click through them all. Well, I like that. It's got a kind of boomy 808 sound. So I like that one, that 2-step garage. So what I can do is drag it on to this column here, and I'll maybe put it in the top slot. Now, this is what's called a clip, because it's a little clip of audio. If I play on it, you can hear it there. Like that. And I can actually get the second part to it, this one. Drag that one below as well. And next we've got 2 clips of audio. And I can click this one, it'll start. And then when I click this one, it'll start. And listen to how it will actually stay in time, the beat. I'll press it kind of off the beat, but it won't actually start until on the beat. And then that one. Which is quite cool actually, and I like them all to be orange, so I'm going to right click it. I want to make it orange, and I'm just going to rename that one the drum loop. that. So you can right click and rename it, or if you're on a Mac, control click and hit rename like that. So I've got kind of two little drum beats there in this column here. This slider changes the volume of it up and down. You see that? You've also got a mute button. You can mute it. And you've also got a solo button like this as well. That'll solo that track if other ones are playing. So I've got kind of a funky drum loop on the go. I think I'd quite like to get some other kind of loops in as well. So maybe I'll get some music loops, and it might be cool to get some sort of synth sound or something. So let's have a look. There's synth, harp. The loops actually. These are all kind of like pads a little bit. Okay. A bit more drums. Oh, here we go. They're all right, pretty groovy. So you get all sorts of loops and sounds and stuff. But I think what I might actually do is got like a personal sample library as well, which is just in here. So I can go to my own. I know there's a lot more loops in here. So you can add your own sample libraries and you get loads for free online. And I can actually just search. I'm just going to search like bass synth up the top. If I can spell it right, mistyped it a bit. Bass synth. Came on a bass line. Drop in here, see what we got. We're having a bit of a garage.
That sounds good.
Vibe tonight, yeah. I'm a big fan of People Just Do Nothing, that TV series as well. Have anyone seen that? With their pirate radio station in Hounslow. It's filmed a bit like The Office, yeah. Let's get the garage vibe. So what I can do is drag and drop it on. Now you might look at it and be like, oh, wait a minute, Dave, that says 1, 2, 2, and that's the tempo. That's different to this tempo, which is actually 12.91. That's a bit weird. Let's click the tempo, change it to 125. Well, Ableton's so smart, it actually warps every clip to the exact overall project tempo, which is up here. So it's really cool. So I can drag it onto here. Now you'll notice it's not going to let me drag it onto a MIDI track. It does, but it makes it straight into an audio track, okay? Because remember, only audio can live on audio tracks. So I can actually drag it into the blank space like that, which is kind of very convenient as well. And that's it there. So I know it's bass. I'm going to rename it bass like that. And if I want to launch both that one and that one at the same time, I can launch what's called the whole scene by this button here. Hit play like. A bit loud, so I'm going to bring it down. Manage the volumes a little bit. And then maybe we could get part 2 of it, just like this one. Drop that in there, okay? So you can flick about between that horizontal rows called scenes. Well, what if I want that one playing, but then that one? Experiment. You can just hit that one there. Swap them around. It doesn't have to be. It's quite non-linear is the word. I use it. That one there. Jump back to that one. If you want to stop one completely, you can hit that button there. Any of the blank buttons. You start it again. And then this is how you can use a solo button. I'm actually go over and hit that again to the bottom. Now, you might think, oh, that bass line sounds okay, like it sounds all right. Let's have a listen to it just on its own. You might think, oh, what would be cool? What if I had some cool effects to that? So in your browser window here, you've got this whole section called audio effects. And basically, you know, if this is like your sort of sound, this is how you can like paint extra color on top of it. Basically, it's so much fun. So you can do all sorts of crazy stuff, like get like You don't normally put echo on a bass, but just to give you an example of how crazy it can get, this is a little echo unit that's now, if I double click that, you can see this is on that track. And if I just hit play, you'll hear the bass echoing about now. Making it tunnel longer. Adding loads of reverb. How much effect, how much of the original bass. A little bit of that delay. So I quite like this. You can add an effect called like the flanger on the drums. Drag that on there. Let's just hear what it's like on the drums. And you just drag the little dot about to get the cool effect. You want to see this XY pad is cool. You can drag the yellow dot about. So now you've got a cool effect on the drum as well. And if I listen to them both, there's a bit much that effect on the drum. I'll bring it down. Like that. So that's how you can add effects on it as well. And you can go mad. You can absolutely have as many of these tracks as you want. So I might go back to my sample library and might think, just shout out, what else could this track do with everyone? What do you think? What can we add to it? No right or wrong answers, just whatever you think.
Maybe a bit of guitar, Dave.
Bit of guitar, really? Okay, cool. Let's have a listen.
I was thinking some voice.
Yeah, voice, yeah, of course. So I can look up guitar samples just now as well, see what we've got. We might not find a sample that matches. And later on, I'll show you how to. We're using a lot of sample-based stuff just now, just so you know, which is like an easy starting point. But later on, I can show you how to actually play in notes and play in your own sounds and instruments. And that gives you even more creative freedom. So that does happen later on, just so you know. But yeah, a little bit of guitar, what can we get? So let's have a listen. Maybe this one.
I don't think that was a bad shout actually. Maybe piano.
Maybe piano. Okay.
Yeah.
I think I agree with vocal as well. Yeah, I know. Let's have a look what we got. Something in here. Our drum and bass. It's spooky, which is kind of cool. Just try. Oh, actually, what you can do, if I hit play up here, you can hear it in time with the track, what it would sound like.
Need a voice now.
Like that, but really in the background, maybe. Is that really quiet?
Yeah.
Yeah. So obviously we need a voice. Can any of you MC? If so, time's the time to step up. So I'll just, like I said, search. You can search up here in your browser, voice or maybe vocal. Actually, I know in my samples, my personal samples here, I've got some a cappella loops. I just need to find them. So in other, I think, vocal a cappellas, and basically these ones would be not free to release because they're like under copyright, but you can just play around with them for fun, if that makes sense. So let's hit play, because they're like really like famous ones. Like there's like, you know, all sorts of people in here.
One kiss will make it back.
Easy boy.
So I'll bring that into this channel here, yeah. And what's cool is you can click into the clip. So this is the clip. If I double click it, boom, that is your file, your waveform there. Now, it's actually not synced to the beat, which is annoying. But all I have to do is we call when it syncs a warp. So I'm going to click warp, and it's actually going to tell Ableton to warp it to the beat now. And I can actually go in here and find a bit of it I like, rather than the intergalactic. Let's try and find an actual vocal bit, maybe, where it's just them singing. Well, I'm going to loop maybe 4 bars from here. So you can just drag these arrows, and that's what's known as your loop brace, like that, which is cool. So I'm going to drag these arrows in like this. We start and end ones. Probably want to make the bar 4 loops long, maybe like 16 bars, something like that. Hit this loop button. Okay, let's see. It might not work. It might work. Let's give it a tester, okay? And hit start. We can hit this scene launch button. So you can see how it's trying to sync it to it, which is kind of fun. Not working perfectly, but you get the idea how you can drag and drop these samples in and kind of sync them as best as possible to the samples that you're using, like that, which is a lot of fun. But I think I might mute that one because I quite like the beat just as it's so fun. Now, what is really cool is, as well as having access to samples, you've also got access to instruments you can actually play in Ableton. So any idea where I might find them? What's this big window called, remember? The browser. Yeah, the browser window. So if that's closed, remember, you hit that button, boom. And then instruments, it's just in the list there. And you've got all different ones like analog, which emulates analog synthesizers. You've got collision, which emulates strings. What other ones? You've got impulse, a little drum machine. Operator, which is a kind of 80s sounding digital style synthesizer. You've got a simpler, which is a really good sampler. And a few extras like wavetable as well. So I thought we could put some lead synth into this one. And what's nice is it's got loads of presets. So I want a lead synth. I can just like go down lead synth, and you can kind of click on them and see what they sound like. And just scroll down. Ooh, that's quite cool.
That's cool.
That is cool. So any ideas how we get that in its own track, everyone?
Drag it to space.
Yeah, just drag it into the space, easy as. Okay, so what it'll do, that'll give its own MIDI track actually, which is a little bit different to the audio track. So a MIDI clip will contain the data for what this synth needs to know to play. So this is actually the little synth here with some controls on it. Now, an awesome thing is there's a few different ways of doing this, but I quite like to play it in, just jam it in. And there's a button here. You see this little keyboard button? If you hit that, boom, that turns your actual keyboard into like a MIDI keyboard. Like you can play in notes like I'm just with my laptop. It's like it's basically from the letter A along to the letter L. The top row is the letter W, I think. Yeah.
Wow.
Aye. So cool. So it's like a keyboard built into your computer, and you use that to jam out beats. Is so cool. I love it. So you just need to remember to turn that. Sorry?
That's amazing.
It's cool. And what you can do is the top row, like the QWERTY row and the ASDF row, is your notes, and then button Z and X bring it up and down an octave. So if I press Z, lower, or X. I was thinking it might sound good if this sound has a lot more reverb. So I can just go to this bit here, turn it up. That sounds cool, doesn't it? So it's just sort of playful thing. There's no right or wrong. You're not going to totally mess things up because you can always just go edit, undo, change reverb. So yeah, I think that's one of the benefits of learning music production and software. Like you can never really totally mess something up. You can just undo, like, and if you keep saving it as you go along, which I've not done.
Yeah, I was just going to say, does it auto save?
Yeah, I know. Check me out, being a total renegade. Haven't even saved this set yet. But even, to be honest, even if this set crashed right now, the next time it opened, it would ask me, do I want to recover that work? It's really tight like that, Ableton. It's good. So what I can do is hit play and just try and jam out on the MIDI keyboard, or my keyboard on my computer, the actual letters, and see, can I get something that sounds okay over this riff? might just do something simple like that. And if I want to try and record that, I can just hit this button. It'll give me a little counting. This will start looping and I can just try and play it in. So it's feeling a bit laggy and it didn't go quite as planned, but that's not the end of the world, because you can go in and then edit your rubbish playing. So I play a bit of keyboard, so I'm not amazing. And it always lags a little bit on Zoom, my one. That's my excuse anyway. But to get into your clip view, just like we went in and looked at the audio wave of the Beastie Boys like that, you can double click into a MIDI clip, boom, and you can see these little squares or rectangles are the notes I played in. Now, the first thing I'll do is I know maybe the first bar kind of sucked. So I'm going to bring in my loop brace to maybe this one here. And I know it's only a 1 bar loop or 2 bars, so I can just bring it in like that. And then what's cool is, check this out, if you look at them closely, if I select them, if I just click and drag and right click, I go quantize, they should snap to like the beat. See how they moved? You see that? I'll undo it.
Oh yeah.
There, right click.
God. I've been
They're
doing
on
this
the beat
manually.
now. So yeah, so you can sort of play it in and then it doesn't go right, and then you can just fix it like that immediately. And then I was like, oh, I wish they held down longer, so I can select them all and just hover over the back, drag them in length like that. And now if you listen.
Oh, that's man. It's cool.
Yeah, that's working. Sorry if I feel like the CPU meter up here is going a bit crazy on my laptop. So hopefully you might get a bit of crackle on the sound, but you hopefully get an idea of how the loop is sort of going now. So this is a little bit of a combination of like playing in some notes like that and moving them around. You can even click and drag them up and down like that. If I want to select them all and hold down Shift and then press up on my keyboard, I can move them up an octave like that. Or down to Shift and down. That's quite cool. What if I want both though? What if I want one that's a bit lower and one that's not? All I have to do is right click this, duplicate. Okay. I'll rename this one high, and then I'll rename this one low, just so I know. Okay, like that. And then this high one, I want to select them. Anyone remember how to shift it up an octave?
Shift and the up button.
Hold down Shift, press up, maybe do it twice, and then we should get them all now together. There you go. That's a little bit of how you can add in the low and the high. And to close this window down, there's 2 ways to do it. You can hit that little button there, which is your little arrow, fold it away, or you can go Control Alt L for lower, or Shift, so Command Alt L on a Mac to make the lower window go up and down like that, which is cool. So we've kind of got this little riff on the go. We've got part 2 of our song just kind of like here. And then part 1. I think part 2 got a bit more beats to it, a bit more stronger. So maybe we should exemplify that by going to our user library, packs, core library, samples, get some more drums on this, go to loops, and I quite like this beat. Drag and drop that in its own bit. And I kind of like keeping my beats all orange. It's just my sort of taste, and all together. So you can actually right click, choose your color, that you can click and drag into the right column you want, like that. So, and right click, make it orange, like this. And then the first one's kind of more ambient. second part of the song I really like that. I could probably like right click this clip here. What if this one's in this part 2 of the song but a little bit like different? So I can click it and go duplicate, boom, there it is. Go into it, and what if I'm like, okay, how can I make it different? I could actually select the clips and hit reverse, and I'll just flip them around and just see how it sounds. It's almost the same, but it's not, if that makes sense. Let me stop this one.
Hi.
You can play around, play it. Take out the 2-step, 3, 4. Click about and you're almost like playing it like live, which is so much fun. Just experimenting about, clicking on stop, start, just seeing what works together. I don't know if the Beastie Boys will sound better on part 2. I think we might struggle to get them to fit, but it's always worth a go. I think we owe it to them because they're such legends.
Don't you tell me to smile. You stick around and make it put your wine. No one's beyond you can die. Maybe this is because of the
so you can see how you can get quite quickly into like building track using a combination of samples and instruments. I'll do a kind of little recap of just the different terms. So we've got like our browser window here. Each column is called a track, and it kind of represents a sort of instrument, if you will, like the bass or a certain drum instrument. Each little clip of music's conveniently called a clip. And then you've got audio clips that have a waveform of actual recorded audio in it. And then you've got MIDI clips, which actually have like note data in it for like the synths to play, which is a lot of fun. And then you can jam out in this modular way. And eventually you can like even record yourself doing that. So it goes into the classic timeline view, which we've not explored much yet today. But you can have a look at that later, how you can get your fight once you're settled on what you're creating. You can then go, boom, let's put it in a timeline. But it's this non-linear approach to music that makes Ableton so fun to play around with, is because you don't have to settle for the structure of your song when you're just kind of experimenting. You can just play around, and I just love that. It's so cool. Cool. So have you guys got any questions or anything else you would like to see on Ableton just now?
Yeah, I was like, maybe I wasn't following everything, but if you wanted to play around more with having bits of it coming in at later stages and so forth, is there a really easy way in which that's doable? Is it just literally you're playing around with the master? There's not another way in which you can kind of play around with the time frame?
Yeah, there is. There's at least 3 or 4 different ways you can go from mucking around and having fun like this to actually getting a timeline of a song together. So one way is you can record yourself doing that. One way is you can actually just like straight up, I'll show you. I'm just going to minimize, I'm just going to set this up so it's ready to go. You can actually do it in a kind of really more kind of thought out way, like drag and drop clips. So I'm dragging this clip into the other view. I'm going to pop it on my timeline there, okay? And then I can make it all the way along. And if I start my timeline now, you can see it's like that. If I go back to session view, I can bring in the other 80s one and feel like actually we'll have that start there, or maybe there. So on my timeline, got the beat, and it starts there. So you can do it that way, so a really thoughtful way, or you can do it like this. I'll show you. If I stop all my clips, they're stopped. If I hit the big record button, start playing around. now go into timeline view, that has all been recorded in what I just did there.
That's
Click that button, look at it, and I'll be like, oh, I actually didn't like the Beastie Boys coming in. Click it, delete, it's gone, and this will play back what I just did. Like that. And then I'll be, oh, maybe the 80s come in there. There's what a picture. Here. What if I only put that one and click that? I'll drag that one to there. So it's like, you click and drag, and that's like 2 quick ways of getting to what we call the arrangement. So when you're arranging your track, it's a sort of different stage of the creative process, but this is like 2 out of maybe 3 or 4 ways you can do it in Ableton. Does that answer your question, Joe, do you think?
Yeah, definitely.
Nice one, cool. Any other questions, guys, before I kind of stop sharing the screen and that?
Does the timeline just carry on, or do you have to set it for a certain length of song?
Yeah, you could jam out for 5 hours if your RAM and hard drive and CPU would let you. So yeah, it will just keep going as long as you kind of want to create your piece for. So, which is great because some people do a live set in a club, and it can last like 2 hours of kind of improvisation and launching clips, and then they can actually finish it later on when they take it back to the studio. So yeah, it just keeps going.
Cool.
Yeah, cool. I'm going to stop sharing my screen now because I think that kind of covers quite a lot in a sort of 45-minute session of the basics of Ableton, but I'm really excited to hear what you think about it. Mike, what do you think about it so far? How does that look to you?
That's awesome. Yeah. So some of it, like, I already know, but it's so nice to hear someone speak about it, just to confirm some of the stuff that I didn't know or knew and stuff like that. So it's really helpful.
Cool. Awesome. Joe, are you thinking it looks kind of interesting? Something you might quite like the idea of?
I've not played around with that program before. I played around with Audition mostly, but in a pretty blind way.
Yeah.
I imagine there are some things which are quite compatible. I guess the only advantage of me sticking with Audition is that I already pay for it as part of a package, so it feels like, oh, can I invest in another program? I'm not sure, you know.
Yeah, fair enough. Well, I guess you've got that 90-day free trial that gives you the sort of at least a good test period of it. Definitely. Yeah, I definitely get that. And then see, I know what you mean because I use Premiere Pro for video editing, and it's like, yeah. So cool. Kirsten, what do you think of that's what? Does it look like something you're interested in? Quite like the look of?
Definitely. I mean, in some ways it's a lot easier than GarageBand, because I've been doing a lot of those fixes manually, trying to kind of line things up when I'm slightly off. I mean, I'm sure there's a way in GarageBand that you could do it easier than I've done it, but I mean, that would make it a lot easier, which would be good. But I just wonder if can one transition stuff that I've already done that I want to tighten up onto this program.
Yeah, totally. So there's a way, definitely. So basically in GarageBand, I can send you a link or something how to do it, but basically you'll bounce what's known as stems. So every instrument in GarageBand you'll get an audio file for your project, and then you just drag and drop it into Ableton, set it to the same tempo, boom, it's like that. So that happens all the time. For example, in the industry, someone will make something in, say, GarageBand or Logic or who knows, Pro Tools or whatever, Audition maybe, and they'll send it to like someone who is an audio engineer to mix it, and that audio engineer might use a different one like Ableton, and they'll be like, okay, I've got the files, boom, pop it in, and then they'll mix it. So yeah, that whole concept of sending stems between pieces of software is quite a working thing. Definitely you can do that.
Amazing.
Cool. All right, well, thanks for your time this evening, everyone. It's been an absolute pleasure. I'll definitely get this recording sent out to you guys over the next few days. If you want to watch it back or anything, that'd be cool. But thanks. And if you have any other questions, you can always like email me, or I think all of you got that Calendly link to book in a quick call if you want as well, if you do have any other questions as well. Is that cool?
Thank you very much.
Awesome.
Great. Well, have a nice night. Have a great weekend. See you about.
Bye. Have a good evening.